are going to have our final speaker. She was also part of our Art of Recovery in March. This is a wonderful artist, Kelly Taaffe, and she's going to bring us home. She's a world-traveling word nerd and artist. I said it right that time. She thrives on the fact that life outside of addiction is not only possible, it's beautiful. A graduate of the University of Illinois, her MS in advertising, she is the lead copywriter on the brand team at Box. Kelly's also an author and illustrator of her own book, Stanley Finds His Tribe. And I think if you've been wandering around today, you've probably encountered her table and seen a beautiful piece of art. Kelly's going to talk about her art, her recovery, and how creativity powers recovery. Are we ready? Come on up.
Check. Whew. I'm Kelly, I'm an alcoholic. I brought tissues. I've never done anything like this before in my life. So it's truly an honor to be here. And I'm going to use Taylor Swift's Shake It Off if I need to try to hold back my tears, because this is very awesome. So thank you. And I want to thank everyone in this room because you make my recovery possible. So in the spirit of Dharma recovery, since I've got about 20 minutes here, I was thinking I'd start with a 20-minute meditation. I wrote that one myself. Obviously, I'm anxious to be here. Part of it's getting up in front of you, and part of it's because, like I said, I'm a Pisces. I'm afraid I'm going to cry. And but the biggest part is that I'm just afraid that my words won't be enough to share how beautiful recovery is. And I'm a writer, so I'm supposed to be good at words. And I was asked to come here today because I wrote a book and somehow I published it, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that and how creativity powers recovery. The truth is still a bit of a mystery to me, but I'll tell you what I've learned so far. So, let's start with a few housekeeping items. A little bit about me. I live in a 600 square foot apartment with my boyfriend, who's also in recovery, and 2 cats who run the household. The pink one, the one in pink, she's kind of pink. Tiramisu, you can call her Monkey for short. She pretty much runs the place. And the tuxedo is Tucker, and he's my grief cat. I got him while I was grieving, and he turned out to bring me nothing but grief. And I love him very much. Let's see. 8 years of sobriety, thank you. I've moved about 20 times, and that was part of my addiction, moving. But the coolest town name was my little town in New Jersey, so I like to say I hail from Sparta. My name, Kelly, means warrior, and I've made that my brand. It's on my wrist here. And in case you're wondering, my last name, Taaffe, it's like Smith in Ireland. But I don't see it much around here. And lastly, no surprise here, my car's name is Xena, after the warrior princess. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I arrived here. It starts with a very magical childhood. I grew up, like I said, New Jersey. I was in the forest. I did live in a house, but I was in a forest. And I thought the forest was magical. Like, I thought it was amazing. I was convinced that I could fly. I actually believed that, and when I moved out to California, I told all my neighbors that. My mom used to make me these amazing costumes. As you can see here, I was either transforming into a butterfly or Rainbow Bright or Princess Fairy, so they really fed my imagination, and I appreciate that. My mom also invited me to paint one of our walls when we moved to one of our locations in California. So I was really given a lot of creative freedom. When I became a teenager, things changed. It was like I didn't have a built-in defense or coping mechanisms. When I got into high school, I was bullied. I'm kind of a weirdo, so now I own that, but I didn't know how to deal with it back then. So it was kind of like I had a veil over my eyes, and everything that was said to me, it either sounded negative or I just didn't know how to deal with it. I had very low self-esteem. I hated myself. I resorted to, first, I would cut here, and later I would obsessively diet. I got into a very toxic relationship that lasted way too long. And then I had my first drink when I was 15. I remember just taking first shot of vodka at a party and having 7 more, just feeling the burn, loved how it felt, numb all over. And then later in life, I was prescribed Vicodin. And I remember after the first pill, I was like, where have you been all my life? So I entered rehab about 2 years after I took that first pill, maybe a little more. I very quickly spiraled into a walking pharmacy. I took everything in pill form just to escape. And I remember I had kind of an intervention with my family, and I willingly went into rehab for 4 weeks, inpatient. And while I was there, I had heard about the 12 steps for the very first time. And I heard about a higher power, and these are all principles of the Alcoholics Anonymous program. And so I was kind of just getting familiar with the principles of that program, which are service, steps, recovery, sponsorship. These are all things that keep me sober today. Just kind of got familiar with them. And then as a result of those things, I have community, connection, and belonging. While I was in rehab, the first thing I asked for was my sketch pad. It was like my parents would come visit me, and I was like, can you bring me my sketch pad? I don't know why I need it, I just need it. I had forgotten that I liked art. And I got out of that program, and it would be about a year and a half before I really understood that I couldn't drink. I knew I had a problem with pills, but I was like, I could probably still drink. My therapist actually gave me some advice that is akin to what's in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is try some experimental drinking, see what happens. And she said, listen for a voice that says, I need it, or I can't XYZ without it. So it took me a while, but I finally heard it. And it was May 17, 2014, and I had just seen the Book of Mormon with one of my best friends. Great show, by the way. And I was on my second lavender lemon drop martini, and I heard it. Not the voice of God, like some of us here, just the voice of addiction, the beast. And it said, you're always going to need me. You'll never have enough. And that's when I quit. Life got brighter after that, a lot brighter. I discovered there are other countries in the world that you can go travel to, that you can cut off all your hair if you want to, and that I could make authentic connections who are sitting in this room today. Shake it off, don't cry. And I started hearing this new voice. it was mine. Sometimes it sounded like Xena the warrior princess, "Ah, la, 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 la." And other times it whispered quietly, "I'm always here." When I began using my voice, that's when things like this started happening. Thank you. Is this thing on? Testing? Awesome. All right, so recovery opened the door to art. Now art keeps the door open on my recovery. The two are symbiotic. Art is capturing the present moment. It's a channel to my higher power. And in each of these, there's something that inspired me, and I just let the rest flow. Those are from Kyoto. These are just pictures that were too beautiful not to paint. That one right there is my sister. Same story. And that one's where I was inspired by a table. So camouflage my art into a table. All right. Art is also service to others. It's also a form of meditation. It breaks the bonds of addiction. It surprises, it soothes, and it swoons me. This is a picture I refurbished of my grandparents. And this is Harley, one of our pets. Every time we lose a pet in my family, I like to paint a picture or draw a picture of that pet. Art starts here. A few strokes on a page, stream of consciousness. It doesn't look like much at first, but after a while, you stand back. And a million little details come together. Shake it off. To create a masterpiece. And I'm not even kidding. I chart some of these out in squares, and then I just draw a square within a square within a square. And often I think it looks like nothing. It just looks like blobs. But I heard this in another speaker's share today. Trust the process. Art is such a good exercise in trusting the process. I had an art teacher one time who told me to draw what I see, not what I think I see. And for me, whose mind distorts things, I don't see reality clearly, never was there a better message. So, how does publishing a book about trees happen? Well, it started with a cat, and by getting out of my own way. It was 2019, and I had just put down my darling Pepper. She was with me through the hardest time of my life. She was with me through my early recovery, and she also had asthma, and so it made her passing very traumatic. And like in my family, pets are pretty much your kids, so it caught deep. There's a line in AA literature that talks about how our cravings cease when we stay in fit spiritual condition. Page 85. It just comes. That's the miracle of it. And once you're in recovery, the it gets a lot bigger. It can be healing, it can be a miracle, it could be just getting through the day. And so the day after, when we went to Muir Woods for a hike, and I was with my boyfriend and his sister and her husband, and it turned out to be a very profoundly spiritual experience for me. I could feel Pepper in the trees, and we happened to just walk by what appeared to be a sermon. There was a man speaking to a group of people about the power of the Redwoods. And this is a photo that my boyfriend took that day. And I don't remember starting the book, but I just remember that I felt the power in the trees that day, and I started to draw. Redwoods, the Latin name for redwoods is Sequoia sempervirens, and that means always thriving. Always thriving. That is what Pepper would have wanted me to do. So the book, Stanley Finds His Tribe, pretty much wrote itself. It turned out to be the story of a tiny sapling who starts panicking because he's stuck in another tree's shadow and he's not getting any sunlight. And here's the amazing thing about those trees. None of that matters. They don't depend on that. They depend on their roots, which connect to families of redwoods, and they get their nutrition from each other. I have to give my Crafter Zoom ladies credit for that. They helped come up with that idea, so some of them are in the audience today. That's my Sunday afternoon art group that I've started. Family is what everyone needs. Whether it's your biology, or you're adopted, or you've adopted a family of your own. I'm actually all three. By the way, this is real life Stanley, homegrown from the Muir Woods gift shop. I am going to walk my talk and plant him someday with a family, but for now, he's pretty happy with us. And when you hear a phrase like published author, you probably think, oh, this person totally must know what they're doing. And you're wrong. I had no idea what I was doing. In fact, publishing was not my original intent. I wrote the book, and I printed it through CVS Pharmacy photo book, and this was the result. It was beautiful. It had full-page bleeds, large text. I was super impressed, and I was like, why wouldn't I publish this? After all, CVS pharmacy photo books also don't scale. So I went with a reputable self-publisher, who I'm not going to name, but I'll just say that what I heard was that it was going to be easy. Their marketing, of course, told you, you just upload your content, your photos, and send it. It was like they have this book builder tool. You just send it away. It was a cluster. Like, there was no options for changing the sizes of the pictures, and this is all within their book builder tool. There was no options for increasing the size of the text, so you can see the difference. So when I got this, and some of you have this version, and I have a blue light special for you over there if you have this version of the book and you want the newer version. So let me tell you how I arrived at the newer version. So it just kept nagging at me. I was like, this isn't what I wanted it to look like. I can do better than this. So a few months went by. I tried a few more times. I didn't have any luck. And then finally I was like, what if I just lay it out in Microsoft Word and save it as a PDF and try to upload it? Eureka! It worked. And so now, the latest edition of the book looks a lot more like this. But, the moral of the story is don't give up. Or as we say in AA, don't quit before the miracle happens. And if CVS has to be your guiding light for a minute, just go with it. So, I'm so much more than a recovered addict. I'm an artist, I'm a writer, I'm a world traveler, and I'm a warrior. I'm the me that I was always meant to be. I'm always thriving, like the Sequoia sempervirens. And today you got a snapshot of what my recovery looks like. A few pixels, a stroke on the page. You're painting your canvas to life too, and it's going to be a masterpiece. Thank you.
Wow. Here. That was amazing. Wasn't that amazing?